Right.
George, it's great sitting down with you. You're on the beautiful West Coast, the beautiful province of BC. So thanks for joining me tonight, where I am, this afternoon, where you are. What's it like over there in BC? Is it a sunny day? Is it a rainy day? You guys get a lot of rain.
Well,
or that's what you tell people from the East Coast.
Yes, of course. And being from Toronto, I know all too well about what it's like out there. But I'm happy to report it's another sunny, hot day here in the Lower Mainland. We've had unprecedented heat this summer. So
fantastic.
Yeah, sorry to tell you, but it's a nice sunny day here.
Yeah. You know what? And it's like I told you before we went on air, I've got relatives out in BC, and I would spend, since my 18th birthday, at least 2 weeks a year out in BC visiting family members. We would always go around August, September timeframe. And every time I would get there, we would extend our stay a little bit longer. And I would always look around at my family, my extended family, and say, guys, it hasn't rained. And like, I've been doing this for like 10, 15 years. And I still haven't been here like during one of your rainy seasons. And I'm starting to wonder, like, is this a myth or what is this? Like, yeah, we just don't want you guys coming out here. This is how we keep you guys at bay, because otherwise the whole country would want to live there. So beautiful part of the country that you're in. And thanks again for joining me tonight. So George Buchanan is the proper way to say your last name. And thank you for that lesson as well. You're with Coalition, so we're going to talk about Coalition, about cyber. This is a really hot topic in the industry, especially in the last 2 years. Cybersecurity, like, I don't know if you've noticed that, or if it's just people like me are now taking notice. But is this like a buzz thing now? Like, everyone's jumping on, like, not the bandwagon, but people are finally awake and their eyes are open? Or is it always been something that has been, a threat, but it's just more pronounced now? What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a culmination of a lot of things, quite frankly. I think it's the proliferation and dependence on technologies, the fact that, as a result of the pandemic, almost overnight, entire workforces were tasked with the responsibility of working remotely. So there's heightened vulnerabilities associated with that. I think the risk has always been there. But here in Canada, it is still often viewed as an emerging risk. It doesn't have the maturity, if you will, of south of the border or other areas of the world. But certainly we believe it to be one of the most pervasive risks society faces today, right? No industry is immune. I'm often reminding our broker partners the fact that, and coming from the carrier side and broker side in the past, a lot of the pushback is, particularly from SME clients, I don't need this coverage. It's a subjective or an elective, if you will. And, my IT guy says I'm good, we're in the cloud, or I'm not Target or MGM or Colonial Pipeline, they'll never hurt me. And the sad fact of the matter is, based on some research and data we have, is that over 57% of SME clients, so companies with 250 employees or less, have had an incident, or sorry, strike that. Hopefully you can add.
Yeah, for sure.
We've had an increase of 57% over this time last year in terms of the number of incidences for SME clients. So the long and short of it is this, that SME clients are not immune to it. They're understanding there's a need. I'm trying to communicate to our broker partners the fact that it's equally important to protect one's digital assets as it is to protect their physical assets. And I think there's more and more of a sense of an awareness and a need to seek out and get a robust standalone cyber policy as it is to make sure you're protecting your physical property.
Very, very well said. And that, that's a great intro. And so before we dive into some of the business side of things, we were talking a little bit about, being in BC and that type of thing. What's just to get to know George a little more as a person, what kind of interesting things do you do to keep yourself busy, or have you picked up any new hobbies lately, or anything that's kind of gives you good vibes?
Well, great. A little bit about me. I've been in this business over 30 years. I started my career at Royal Sun Alliance in Toronto in the risk management specialty lines department as an underwriter of accounts that are risk managed, large SIRs and the like. I was afforded the opportunity to go on their management fast track program, which was 2 years in duration. And that opened me up to opportunities to work within their finance, investment, claims, personal lines, commercial lines, and the like. And through the course of that 2-year training program, I was asked if I wanted to oversee a team in Calgary. So I uprooted with my newlywed wife. We moved to Calgary. It was meant to be an 24 months to come, and it ended up being 4.5 years.
Love those, yeah.
Yeah. And then ultimately we decided to stay there. And then I was, I received some unsolicited requests to go elsewhere. One of those was the opportunity to become the vice president commercial at AXA Pacific, which entailed and involved me uprooting yet again and moving to the West Coast. And that was back in 2003. And I've been here ever since. Subsequent to the acquisition of AXA by Intact, I again received some unsolicited requests to go elsewhere. And that's when I joined Hub International as the chief marketing officer. So I spent the last 5 years as on the broker side prior to joining Coalition. In answer to your question, I've got a lot going on. I mentioned before we came onto the air that I have 3 sons, a 6-year-old and twin 3-year-olds. So as you can imagine, it's quite difficult to try to entertain and yet contain 3 active boys in the midst of a global pandemic. So that's keeping me busy. I'm a sports enthusiast. I play a lot of sports, or used to prior to the boys arriving. But I also own my own sports bar back in Toronto back in the day. So
cool.
That was kind of fun. And part of the reason I liked the idea of pivoting when I did, following many years on the carrier and broker side, to join an upstart startup InsurTech, it really taps into my entrepreneurial spirit, which I haven't done in a while. So that's, those are the types of things keeping busy apart from work.
I love that background story. And you moved further west, and Calgary could be a colder climate than Ontario on their worst day, but depending if there's a Chinook, could be like July in the middle of December, right?
That's right.
But now you're in the beautiful West. Has your golf game improved as a result of living where you live?
You would think living on a golf course, my game would be better. But in full disclosure, I haven't picked up a golf club since my twins were born. So over 3 years. In the background, I can still hear guys teeing off on the 15th tee.
Oh man, just rub it in. Oh man.
Yeah.
Right to my heart.
I can honestly say my golf game has not improved. If anything, has gone south, literally.
Well, you know what? Some words of encouragement from a father of 4. I've got 2 of each, and I just this past weekend, or the week before Labor Day, I took the boys to the driving range for the first time. My youngest is 5, and then my other boy is 10, and then I've got 2 teenagers above that, and they actually were half decent. And I thought it was something that they did just for me. It was my idea, of course, but I wanted to at least introduce them to the sport. And now they're on me daily, Daddy, when are we going to go golfing again? So I'm super excited about it, because now I have a reason to take off on a Saturday, and I can bring at least half the kids with me. So there is hope, George. There is hope.
Well, I am looking forward to the day, because I have my own built-in foursome, so that's good to know. I'm also holding out hope that there'll be a future power forward hockey line, but my wife's not too crazy about that idea.
Yeah, well, you've got options, right? At least you've got options.
I got options.
So that's great. So talk a little bit about you. So you mentioned Coalition as a startup tech company. I believe they were established in 2017. Is that right?
The foundational team was formed then. They officially launched in January 2018.
Okay,
in the US. They're based out of San Francisco.
Right, and so you lead the Canadian business. Is that fair to say? Yeah.
I was hired back in January 2020, and we officially launched here in Canada in May of 2020.
Okay, perfect. So and as far as the journey from starting in the US and then growing across the continent and coming into Canada, did did Coalition have Canadian clients before you came on board? When did Canada become a focus? I don't want to just talk about Canada because we do focus on Canadian market, but this is also a global perspective. So I just want to hear a little bit more about how it started, and maybe some of the traction that you guys have, and where you guys are as far as your stage right now in Canada specifically.
Sure. Well, to better answer the question, who is Coalition? I often share the story of our genesis as a company, right? And to better understand that, you'd have to look no further than our two founding members or founders, if you will. Coalition was founded by two tech innovators and serial entrepreneurs who are considered by many as cybersecurity experts. The first individual is a gentleman by the name of John Herring. He serves as a general partner or board member. He's effectively a silent partner within Coalition. John was previously the founder of a company called Lookout. They're one of the largest mobile security networks in the US. So if you have an Android device, chances are you're familiar with Lookout since it's pre-installed in all their devices. The other co-founder is a gentleman by the name of Joshua Mata. He serves as their CEO, and he's got quite a colorful background, not unlike John Herring, in the fact that at the age of 15, he began his career at Microsoft, where he served as their sold his first software, becoming their youngest employee to date. He was often referred to within Microsoft as the boy wonder. So Joshua and John are well respected and known in the cybersecurity space. Joshua spent time within the offensive cyber operations group within the CIA. He was recruited straight out of high school. So both he and Josh came to the realization in terms of asking the question, well, why start Coalition? They looked at what was happening in society and the troubling statistics that we face, and we continue to hear and see them escalate to this day. And that is, despite over $100 billion in annual global spending by consumers and businesses on cybersecurity to defend themselves, the problem continues to escalate. Right? And I like to use analogies when I'm trying to emphasize a point. In this case, I'll use a sports analogy. And that is, you can put as many resources, both financial and human capital, into defending your end of the ice or your end of the field. But if you don't know what plays the offense they're running, you're eventually going to get scored upon. And one of the true differentiators and distinctive competitive advantages we have at Coalition is that not only are two co-founders well-versed on how to play offense as it relates to cyber, but over 75% of our claims and incident response team are former NSA, CIA, or FBI. So when I'm talking about offense as it relates to cyber, you really only effectively fall into one of two categories. Either you're a current or former intelligence agent, or you're a cyber criminal. So to have that level of understanding on how adversaries think and play offense, it's a huge advantage to us. The other concern they have is, cyber attacks and tech failures are expected to trigger over $1 trillion in recovery costs globally. And unfortunately, as many of us know, most of those are borne by the victims. So with that as a backdrop, when it comes to cyber risk, companies really have three options. They can either accept that risk, they can try their best to mitigate the risk, or three, they can transfer the risk. And as we know as insurance professionals, the best way to manage risk is to transfer it through insurance. Right? So that's kind of what the backdrop is as to why they started the company. So from there, they set out to start an MGA that specialized in cyber. They hired some well-respected cyber industry experts, most notably Sean Ram, who's head of insurance. He was formerly Aon's global cyber and tech practice leader. We also hired a lady by the name of Catherine Lyle. She was formerly head of claims at Swiss Re. So with that, they approached 25 markets, looking to gauge their level of interest in obtaining underwriting authority or pen. And 24 of those 25 markets were willing to partner and provide us the pen. The other market went so far as to offer us consideration to purchase the company. So we returned from that experience very humbled by the level of interest. But for the purposes of this audience here in Canada, when we launched, we're backed 100% by Swiss Re. So for all risks domiciled in Canada. And earlier this year, we announced We renewed our relationship with Swiss Re for another 3 years. So they're very happy with our relationship and what we've done to date. But we've also added Arch to our slip. So we have very strong financial carriers behind us, which is typically something brokers look for when they're dealing with MGAs.
Right.
And then that foundational team was put together, and all that was evolving throughout 2017. And as I mentioned, the company officially launched in January 2018 with 10 employees and an ambitious mission to solve cyber risk. If you fast forward to the end of last year, our total GWP would rank us amongst the top 10 global cyber markets. And that's after only 3 short years. So a lot happening since we went live here in Canada. I've been drinking from a fire hose. We've been growing exponentially. And I know a lot to digest there, but certainly cyber is certainly a very topical issue right now. A lot more of our broker partners recognize that their clients are in need of robust standalone coverage. Many of them don't. Much of the business that we've written to date in talking to our broker partners is new business to them. So it's really a great opportunity for cross-sell and organic growth, but it's really existing P&C clients that had not purchased cyber in the past, or may have had an ad hoc endorsement to a package policy, and they're looking for something more robust.
So to, kind of stay on like the evolution of the company here for a second, because you talked about in the intro about SME clients, and back in the when Coalition was first formed, I'm sure, how much would you say the problem that they were seeking to solve and who they were solving it for has changed, if I'm putting that correctly? Because were you going more after larger institutional commercial type of clients initially, and has that evolved now, especially in the last 2 years, where you're maybe going to smaller organizations? And maybe help us unpack some of those. I know this is a multi-part question, so we can go back, but like, what do you mean when you talk about SME clients? Like, what does that mean to the average layperson who might be listening?
Well, small, medium enterprises are our key target area, if you will. That's when we set out. That was our principal client base, if you will. We certainly broadened our underwriting and appetite, and we do write a lot of mid-market business. But we certainly view SME as our main area of focus. It's not to suggest we don't look at mid-market, we do. But the great majority of the business we write is SME.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Now, and I, as a small business owner myself, I actually, in preparation for the interview today, I went online, and I actually didn't. I always like to do this before I sit down with somebody, just learn a little bit about the company, navigate, almost like putting myself as an end user. And I'm able to do a free assessment by just typing in my email address, and you guys use the domain, and you provide a risk assessment, almost like a free risk assessment. Can you talk, because like as a small business owner, that was very easy workflow for me to follow. How do you use that to reach clients, and tell the audience a little bit about that process, what you guys do there? Can you unpack that for us?
I'll preface my comment by saying that we support the independent broker channel, like to transact business or place cyber insurance with Coalition. You have to go through a trusted insurance advisor.
That's important.
We have over 200 plus agencies appointed across the country. We're licensed in all provinces and territories with the exception of Quebec. But to your point, we do offer a valuable service. It's a proprietary scan we conduct, and it's the summation of our findings is put into what we call a risk assessment.
Right.
And the public can have access through what we call control to pull up their own unique assessments. Not a generic form. It's very robust, very detailed, very insightful. I can add to that the fact that in speaking to a lot of our broker partners, they look at that as one of the major contributing factors as to why they're seeing many of their existing or prospective clients purchasing cyber after successive renewal terms of broaching the subject. And that is they're proactively, after partnering with Coalition, providing them these risk assessments that broker partners can obtain when procuring a quote with Coalition, either online or manually.
Okay.
And they can engage their clients in a discussion based on the findings that we put forward.
Right.
And it's all, I should also make mention, and I have to say it often and remind our broker partners of this, this is all publicly available information. None of it's non-invasive.
Right.
These are all public-facing assets. And essentially, we underwrite, and our unique approach to underwriting is that we look at risk at the same way an adversary will,
right,
or a hacker will.
Yeah.
So we're trying to identify vulnerabilities and share our findings with our broker partners or clients directly, in the hope that we can improve their security posture.
Right. Well, and like as a business owner, after I did that assessment, I did it on 2 of my companies. I had a low score. I do have cyber insurance, by the way, but my call to action in that case would be, I would reach out to my broker and I would have a further discussion around, like, it looks like I'm at risk, or I'm potentially, vulnerable. Where should we go from here, right? How well versed would you say is the average broker on having that conversation?
Well, I know one of the points you wanted to raise in this discussion was some of the challenges, and I look at it as being twofold here in Canada, right? Mm-hmm. On the one side, we have the challenge of being an unknown entity venturing into uncharted territory, coming into Canada in May. Although we were well known in the U.S. market in short order, we had to discuss and engage with brokers across the country about why they needed another cyber market and what differentiates Coalition, which I often speak to, and I could certainly, if time permits, get into it today. But yeah. So on the one side, you have to engage with the brokers to help them better understand why there's a need and how our unique approach to underwriting. So as I mentioned, at Coalition, we underwrite like an adversary. And that's to say that we look at a company in the same way a hacker would, in the same way many of our team once did within the U.S. intelligence community. Mm-hmm. And although our initial focus was, and still quite frankly is, to offer a cyber insurance product that provides comprehensive coverage for risk posed by the digitization of everything. But our long-term plan really is to democratize access to technology and services needed to prevent loss in the first place and mitigate and recover from it when it occurs. So this is, we're trying to, this is not solely for the government and large multinational entities. We were wanting to allow for many of these SME clients to have access to these tools and risk management services, which we afford irrespective of the premium they pay for us, right? So educating the brokers is key. I draw a parallel to the early days of D&O. If they're not comfortable with the vernacular, the subject matter, the chances of them conveying that to the need to purchase cyber insurance to their clients is that much more difficult, right? Absolutely. So, and I know firsthand from being on the broker side, in many cases, it was a perfunctory exercise. They'd say, Mr. or Mrs. Client, do you want cyber with that? No? Okay, cover my E&O, sorry, and move on. Yeah. We're having them engage with their clients, share the findings of our complementary and proprietary risk assessment, and understand the importance of protecting those assets. So that's one challenge. Yeah. Couple that with the fact that many of these clients or prospects of the broker partners that we transact business with are largely uneducated to the need. They I'm not saying they're apathetic, but in many cases, the pushback they would have is, they're getting upward pressure on pricing on their P&C side of the house, or mandatory coverages, whether it be their auto or home or what have you. Mm-hmm. And then also in the fact that they don't see the correlation to what they're seeing in the headlines. Right. Colonial Pipeline, Target. I mean, it's daily we're hearing them. Yeah. There's this false sense of security that it won't happen to me. And as I alluded to earlier on the call, as far as the percentages, that's not true. Facts speak otherwise. Yeah. I like to remind brokers that these adversaries are not looking for the most valuable targets. They're looking for the most vulnerable. So our job is to help educate the brokers and also provide them with the tools necessary and the subject matter and help to them convey that message to their clients, respective clients, so they understand the importance of purchasing cyber.
So beyond just the risk assessment side of it and then purchasing protection by transferring the risk, does Coalition get into anything? Maybe this is one of your differentiating factors around providing advice around prevention, around things that SMEs can do, and this might be through your channel partners or directly to the end user to protect themselves, because most small to medium-sized enterprises are probably fairly uneducated around this or limited to the IT, experience within their organization, and that in a lot of cases that's a third party that's supporting them. So
right.
Is that something that you guys provide in addition to just the assessment and the coverage?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about our unique approach, it's not solely on the basis of our proprietary scan. I talk about our unparalleled value proposition, and what that entails is a number of things. First, to your point, we offer all our policyholders a full suite of cybersecurity tools and risk management services, irrespective of the premium they pay. And it's a tremendous value that our broker partners can provide to their clients at no additional cost. So some of those apps and services that we afford include things like credential monitoring service, ransomware prevention through our partnership with Malwarebytes, DDoS mitigation. We have partnership with Cloudflare, HackerOne response, security awareness training through our partnership with Curricula. So there's a whole host of these services that we afford each of our policyholders. And then couple that with the risk assessment that we spoke to earlier, that's again afforded to our broker partners at no additional cost, and they're not even obligated to place the business with Coalition. As you pointed out, the public can go on and obtain their own as well. But you couple those security apps and services with the fact that we have our own in-house dedicated claims and incident response team. And that's an important element when we're talking about cyber. When we're, it's arguably one of our greatest differentiator. We built a team of expert claims advocacy and support staff that form part of what we call our incident response team. And they proactively help clients before, during, and after a claim.
Okay.
So, our in-house, our incident response team, they're all, many of them are former U.S. intelligence agents. So they bring that level of expertise to the table. And all of our entire security and risk engineer team is available to engage with our policyholders and their clients, particularly if they have critical vulnerabilities that are identified through their risk assessment and they want to get further information around how to remediate that issue, or discuss the findings contained within the risk assessment. I for one have facilitated many calls between the broker and their clients and our team to walk them through that process, and there's no cost involved. So again, it's not to generalize to a great extent, but we're not here selling a policy in the hope and a client purchasing with the hope that they don't have to have a claim or have a claim paid.
Right.
It's far more robust than simply selling a policy. We're talking about mitigation, risk management services, and the like.
I think that's to repeat your earlier words, that's the real point of differentiation from, if I'm someone who is fairly uneducated about what is cyber insurance and what is cybersecurity and why do I need it, I think that point, those last few sentences you just said around the assessment, the prevention, and then the support around the instant response or the claim service response, I think that, to me, at least from a end user standpoint, would resonate with me, and I think that's an important message that needs to get out there. So I'm glad you covered that. From a traction standpoint, where would you say the company is in their journey coming into Canada? What are some of the goals that you guys have and the ambitions that you have here in the Canadian market?
Well, coming into uncharted fertile territory, if you will, in Canada and having discussions with my counterparts south of the border in anticipation of our launch, um, we were hopeful that we would have some early success. Truth be told, we had no idea we were going to grow to the extent we have in such short order. We're certainly growing exponentially here as we are in the US. Um, Much of that is attributed to our broker partners that truly understand and appreciate our unique approach to underwriting, as well as the services we afford their clients. But it's also a product of what's happening in the marketplace right now in Canada, and around the world. Frankly, we're in a seismic hardening of the market. There's a lot of significant increasing upward pressure on pricing, restrictive coverage. Many of our carriers are implementing further restrictions to coverage, if not exiting the class entirely. So that's really also compounded our growth, if you will. So things are going really well. It's trying to keep up to our promise and turnaround time and fulfilling our service level agreements and internal turnaround times that our broker partners are accustomed to, and we pride ourselves on.
That's fantastic. And none of us have a crystal ball, but I would say, as far as the future is concerned, the future is likely bright. And you can look at that from two different angles. There's a lot of talk after global pandemic that the next thing we need to watch for is a global cyber event. And a lot of people who are just working from home on behalf of another company have experienced breaches themselves. What do you see as far as trends that are out there to watch for? Any predictions coming from you?
Yeah, and we have a really robust claims report that we offer up free to not only our broker partners, and I would encourage any of your listeners to download a copy. But as far as evolving trends, we see a number of things. First, we see cybercrime is increasing like never before. Business email compromise incidents has led the way as far as the frequency of reported incidents. It's up over 51% over this time last year. Ransomware is growing in severity. The average ransom demand made to policyholders in the first half of 2021 was 1.2 million, a far cry higher than just a year or two ago. It was a nearly 170% increase from the average demand in the first half of 2020. Wow. So exponential growth in ransomware. And criminals are taking advantage of dislocations in how we work. So I mentioned that earlier about the almost overnight migration to working remotely since the start of the pandemic has led to an increase in vulnerabilities associated with cyber. For example, many use Microsoft RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. It's a great feature, allows you obviously to work remotely, but it's a significant red flag to us when we identified that through our scan, and the fact that it's an open invitation for adversaries to gain access to your domain. So that's a concern. There's a rush to facilitate, related to that, there's a rush to facilitate remote work that's come at a cost, right? So as I mentioned, RDP is a big concern. Left exposed to the internet, these access points become favorite targets for hackers. As I mentioned earlier in the discussion, smaller companies are increasingly being targeted. As I stated, that the frequency of incidents is reported for organizations under 250 employees has increased 57% in the first half of this year relative to last year.
Contrary to popular belief,
exactly. It debunks some of these myths that it won't happen to me, we're too small, why would they care? Again, to use the analogy, these adversaries are holding a hammer and they're looking for any nail that's popping up. They're agnostic when it comes to what the industry is. They really don't. Certainly, there's certain industry segments that are experiencing a higher incident of ransomware, for example, whether it's healthcare or certain critical infrastructure is obviously a concern. It's risen to the highest level of government. Just a week or so ago, our founder, Joshua Mata, was one of only 30, I believe, invites from President Biden to sit at the table for a cybersecurity summit,
Oh, wow.
which we were very honored and proud of. But it's gotten to that point. And to your earlier concern, and it's a viable one, the potential for a pandemic or a global cyber incident is real. It's concerning. So those are just some of the evolving trends we've seen to date. There's no expectation that they will diminish. Certainly this year, like last year, they're continuing to escalate.
What are we didn't talk about this before, but so feel free to pass. But what are some of the things that little things that small businesses can do to protect themselves that they might not be doing as part of their daily practice? Like, are there little, top 3 tips to kind of decrease your vulnerability, if you will?
Oh, absolutely. And we offer, a cybersecurity checklist, if you will, that a lot of our broker partners attach to their quotes. But things like, first and foremost, increasing their email security. Despite popular belief, email is not a secure form of communication, and every organization should use caution when sending or verifying sensitive information. The use and implementation of multi-factor authentication. It increases your account security by requiring multiple forms of verification to prove your identity when signing into an app. Maintain full data backups. Full data backup can mean the difference between a complete loss and a complete recovery after a ransomware attack. Enable secure remote access. I referenced it earlier about the vulnerabilities associated with remote desktop protocol, for example. So remote work is obviously quite popular in light of this pandemic. So having secure remote access is very important. Update your software regularly. Use a robust password management guideline and protocol within your organization. You'd be surprised how many individuals, and it's human nature, continue to use their same password on multiple sites. And some of these are breached in third-party breaches, and this is shown within our risk assessment, for example, in terms of exposed sensitive information. So if you, for example, had your username and password exposed on third-party breach, like MGM Resorts as an example,
right?
It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that you would use that same password on your work site. And this isn't lost to hackers. So they, on the dark web, you can obtain a lot of this information, and we share that information in our risk assessment, not to draw attention to individuals within your organization that may have had their username or password exposed on these third-party breaches, but more to the point about the importance of a robust password management guidelines within your organization.
Those are some really good, easy to implement tips. Sorry, was there another point you were going to make there?
Oh, there are other things, scan for malicious software, encrypt your data, set up security awareness training for your employees. It's amazing how much of this comes down to the individual, right? That's the first line of defense. If our policyholders and their employees are well versed on what to look for, it certainly just adds another layer of security.
That's fantastic. And for anybody who's listening, because like a lot of our audience are small startups, right? So security breaches are obviously possible, and they're not dealing with large infrastructure here, but there's lots of IP potentially at risk, et cetera. So these are important things. So certainly follow Coalition. We'll talk about that before we wrap up at the end, where to find you, and if you guys have any newsletters or anything like that, you can mention those at the end. As far as the stage of the company is concerned, so you started in the US and Canada. Are there plans for global expansion? And I understand the company is still privately held. I think it's Series D. You guys have raised lots of money. But can you talk about future plans for Coalition?
Sure. Just to touch on where we're at, Coalition has raised over $300 million US in venture cap private equity, and we're backed by a number of highly prominent players such as Ribbit Capital, VY Capital, Valor Equity Partners, General Atlantic led the last round. as a sidebar, Forbes magazine ranked us amongst the fastest growing venture-backed startups most likely to reach $1 billion valuation or unicorn status. Well, earlier this year, we announced our latest round of funding of about 175 million, which put our valuation at 1.75 billion. So we have unicorn status. We're deploying that capital in a number of ways, certainly increasing our human resources. Our team has grown exponentially. We are broadening our geographic territory. We've hired in the UK. We're starting to work at opening up that space. We broadened our product offering. South of the border, we offer not only cyber and tech E&O, but excess and excess lines, and we're venturing down the path of executive risk. Here in Canada, we started with cyber and tech E&O. Earlier this year, we announced the fact that we are able to afford our broker partners the ability to place excess with us. So we're continuing to broaden the scope of coverage and offerings, as well as our geographic footprint.
That's amazing. And I think I'm going to get a bell now. So anybody I interview with unicorn status, I'm just going to ring a unicorn bell, or so. We need something to go along because that doesn't happen every day. So that's quite. To be featured by Forbes in that way, you're definitely one to watch. So thanks again for coming on to give us a little bit of a glimpse into this whole world of cyber that we keep hearing about. I think there's a lot to unpack here that will require follow-up conversations. So I hope this is the first of many. For those who are looking to find out more about Coalition, what's the best way to go about doing that? Should they reach out to their broker? Should they go to Coalition directly? What's the best way to find you guys?
Well, depending on the nature of the question, certainly if they're seeking to look for cyber insurance, I would highly recommend they reach out to a trusted insurance advisor if they have one, a commercial broker that they deal with on their property, for example. Broach the subject with them. If they're appointed with us, great. They should be familiar with our product offering and how we transact business. If they're not appointed with us and the client would like to continue to place business through them, then have them reach out to me. I'll give you the email address, and I can move forward with an appointment. If they're looking for just some general information, you mentioned the risk assessments, some marketing materials, so on. Certainly, you can go to our website, www.coalitioninc.com. My email is gbozanin, that's GBOZANIN @coalitioninc.ca. And if I may, I'll leave you with what we call our not so secret master plan.
Okay.
And that is, in response to your question about, what do we want to be known for? Mm-hmm. Coalition sells a comprehensive insurance product to protect businesses from rapidly emerging cyber and tech risks. Then we use that money from that to invest in an all-out security platform with free tools, technology, and intelligence to protect all of our policyholders. Then we use that data from that to build better insurance products and even more effective tools, technology, and intelligence. So the more people that join the coalition, the better we are able to accomplish our mission, which is quite simply to solve cyber risks. So I wanted to leave you with that.
Love it. Yeah, that's a very, very holistic answer. And I love that you opened the question for me. I always close with, what do you want to be known for? So that's a perfect closer. Thank you for that. And I really look forward, like I said, to some follow-up conversations. I have no doubt that you're going to have a lot of inquiries coming out of this interview today. And thanks again for sitting down with me today, George. And the kids managed to behave themselves the whole time. I didn't hear anything, and there weren't any golf balls hitting the window. So no, so you made it out unscathed. Eh?
Yeah, you'll be surprised. It's like the analogy about the duck with the legs underneath the water. I mean, my wife's doing a lot down the hall to keep things relatively some semblance of normalcy here. But I really appreciate the invite and the opportunity. This was great. I look forward to further conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Likewise, go pour your wife a glass of wine, and hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Really appreciate it. I'm going to turn